everybody. Welcome back to episode 9 of Meet the Retailers. I am your host, Stacey Mooney, and I am happy to be with you guys once again. It's hard to believe that we are going on week 9 of this series, but here we are, and we have 3 awesome guests for you. This week is cool. We've got RBI, which is Restaurant Brands International, which has 3 different concepts under that umbrella, and we have a representative from each of those 3 concepts, which I would like to introduce you to now. Our first guest is Kafira Pintos. Kafira is with Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. We have Jalila Bouchareb. How'd I do, Jalila? Awesome. Jalila is with Tim Hortons. And we have Alex Plevka with Burger King. Thanks you guys all for joining us this morning. And thank you also to our sponsor, Capital Rivers Commercial. It's awesome to have them on board. They're a great full-service commercial real estate company out of California, which we will share more details about with you here in a little bit. But we're going to jump into the questions that I have for our guest. And like always, at the end of my questions, attendees, you can submit your questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And at the end of my questions, we'll do our best to get the questions answered for you. So here we go. Kafira, I'm going to start with you. If you could just take a moment to share with our guest your role at Popeyes, a little bit of history about the brand, and anything else that you want to share in terms of what you do at Popeyes, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. So I lead the development execution team at Popeyes. My team basically takes a site through almost its entire life cycle. So from site identification to approval to construction to opening, it comes back to us when we remodel the restaurant. And then it comes back to us for any reason if the restaurant is going to close, which is very rare, but happens. So we take it essentially through its entire life cycle. My team is composed of architects, designers, real estate professionals, construction managers, to really make sure that we are putting the restaurants out there in the best places and the best looking shape possible. I've been with RBI since before it was RBI, since summer 2014. So going on my 6th year this year, and have held a couple of roles in supply chain and development at Burger King before moving over to the Popeye side shortly after the acquisition in 2017. I started the global development and profitability function right into joining Popeyes. Spent a little time on the Latin America team managing the North Division, and I've been in this role since early 2019.
Got it. Thank you so much. And you cover the entire U.S. and Canada?
Correct. U.S. and Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in 49 states, 5 provinces. Wyoming, we hope to be coming for you soon, but pretty far reach. And my team is divided into subdivisions.
Got it. That's a very large territory you have. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Jalila, I'll go next to you. If you could just take a moment to share with our audience your role at Tim Hortons and a little bit about the brand and when it started, we would like to hear from you on that.
Sure, yeah. So the brand started in the 1960s in Canada originally, really focused on baked goods and coffee and the breakfast day part. The brand entered the US in kind of its current state in the 80s. And I started with RBI about 5 years ago. I started actually on the Burger King team in the development team working on market planning. I then kind of moved around to a couple of different roles, mostly focused on operations, just before joining the Tim Hortons brand about 1.5 years ago. And since being with the Tim Hortons team, I've been focused on the US, on the development and operations side of things, and have recently transitioned to becoming the general manager for the US.
Wow, great. Thank you. And so you said it's funny. So obviously Alex is still with Burger King, but everybody started at Burger King. So that's the launch pad, I guess. If you want to grow in RBI, you go to Burger King, right? Okay, Alex. And now you're up. last but not least, if you want to share your role, please, at Burger King and your responsibilities. And I think everybody knows about Burger King, but just in case, maybe a little bit about the history.
Sure, yeah. I think everyone's pretty familiar with the brand, global brand with nearly 19,000 stores, about between 7 and 8,000 just in the US and Canada. But I specialize in development. I actually lead development for the West Division and for Canada currently. But recently, I actually worked for Popeyes in finance. So not everyone started at BK, but I actually did BK before that in operations. So pretty familiar with our field teams and the way that our system operates. But I think Burger King itself, everyone's pretty familiar. Home of the Whopper, most recently home of the Impossible Whopper. So a lot of exciting stuff with the brand.
Awesome. It's got to be good for you to have had the experience and then to come back and not be starting from scratch. And do you guys, I'm just curious, because you're all with RBI, how much overlap is there, if any? Alex, you can answer the question just because you're up. Do you guys have, do you coordinate it all, or do you all operate independent of the other two brands for each of your roles?
Yeah, so I think we draw a lot of best practices from each other. Someone's doing something really well. You can always learn from that at RBI. That being said, though, I think that generally we operate more or less independently.
Gotcha. And are you guys all in this? You guys are scattered all over the U.S. Or is each brand have a different headquarters, or is RBI in one central location where you guys can visit with one another, or is everybody spread out?
Yeah, so Burger King is actually based in Miami. I think all three of us are located in Miami currently, right? Yeah. Yep.
Got it. Well, you guys aren't that far from me. We could have come down there and done Run Really live. 6 feet apart, of course.
Yeah, live interview.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you. I'm gonna jump back to Kafira. We're just gonna talk a little bit. I know you've touched on already the territory that you cover, which of course is the entire U.S. and Canada, but want to just ask you about your store counts. If you can, again, just reiterate how many units you presently have open, what you've got planned for the next 18 months. And then I think we've all been curious when we talk to retailers about planned store openings, how you've adjusted that number, if you're going to hit those projections that you had pre-COVID, how you've adjusted that and what it looks like post-COVID.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly. So we have about 2,500 restaurants in US and Canada, across 49 states, 5 provinces in Canada. When we think about growth in 2019, we had 192 restaurant openings between US and Canada. It's the most in our history. It put us at just among the top 5 fastest QSR brand net openings in 2019. I can't speak for what we aim to do in 2020 and beyond, but I can say that we aim to have that #1 fastest growing spot very soon. When we think about COVID's impact, I think it is, the biggest impact that we've seen is largely on the construction timelines. A lot of social distancing happening on site, so construction is naturally delayed, if not stopped altogether. One of the last areas right now that's opening up is the Northeast and New York in particular, but pretty slow ramp up back up on the construction side, and we obviously want to encourage everyone to be practicing social distancing and safe practices on site, and obviously construction timelines have lengthened as a result. But on the development side, right, RBI reported last week our franchisees are experiencing some of the highest same-store sales we've ever seen. Probably the second best quarter to our own from Q4 2019, and with that, the development excitement keeps growing. So we're actually probably the busiest that we've been on the development team in terms of site identification and site approval, because franchisees are really excited to keep growing and using this time as a continuation of that launch pad that we have in our brand.
Thank you. So you don't actually most retailers we speak to, they have a goal in terms of development of units on an annualized basis. You guys don't have that, or?
We do. We have goals, but I think talking about our goals would, for disclosure purposes, I wouldn't be able to say. What I can say is we want to be the fastest growing brand in US and Canada in a very short time.
Got it. Do you have any particular areas of interest in the country where you're really focused on building units?
Yeah. So overall, if you look at a map of the U.S. and Canada, we're pretty underpenetrated in pretty much across all divisions. Our focus is growing with the right partners across all divisions. If we're looking, if we think per division, the West Division, which for us starts at Texas going west, is probably the most underpenetrated relative to our competitors. And I'm talking from Houston to Seattle. We are fielding opportunities for almost every DMA. When we look at the Central Division, we're focusing a lot on Indianapolis, Minneapolis, West Michigan, Kansas City is areas that of high real estate need and development need. And in the East, ironically enough, Miami, which is our office home base, is among the most underpenetrated areas in the East Division. If I keep fielding calls from my friends asking me when they're getting a Popeyes near them, and I keep assuring them that it'll be soon. So, in the East Division, we're looking at Miami, Boston, the Mid-Atlantic, Carolinas area, as well as Central Florida is the most immediate areas of growth.
Gotcha.
But again, looking at a map, we want to make sure that, kind of linking to the LinkedIn post that you mentioned, we want to bring the chicken sandwich to every corner of the U.S. and we want everyone to enjoy our flavors. So, growing far beyond those specific DMAs and territories that I mentioned.
Gotcha. Thank you. And so because I'm not sure, are all of your Popeyes, are they all franchise? Do you have any like corporate RBI owned, or are they all franchise driven?
Yeah, so we all of our growth, except for maybe one or two stores, is franchise led. We're hoping to have a couple of company stores in the next couple of years, but overall 100% franchise based. We do have a couple of company stores, about 40 in the New Orleans market, which is our home market, as well as the Memphis, Tennessee market. And that's for Popeyes. That's the extent of the corporate owned stores.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, Jalila, you're up. If we can again, and again, I know that you guys kind of all touched on this in our first question, but we'll just go over it again if you don't mind. Number of existing units, number or percentage of growth that you're looking to hit over the next 18 months, and if you've had to adjust that number at all as a result of COVID. I think it's been interesting in the past couple of weeks. Most of our retailers have said that, they had a certain number of units they were going to grow by, and for the most part, they've been able to keep those on track, with the exception of a very small percentage, which I know it surprised me. I would have thought that the percentage would be higher, but I'll stop talking so you can answer the question if you don't mind on Tim Hortons.
Sure. Yeah. So we have over 600 restaurants in the U.S. right now. We are primarily focused in Michigan, Ohio, and New York in terms of markets. We do have some restaurants in New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maine, and a few in Indiana. So we're primarily concentrated kind of in the northern regions at this time. In terms of development and growth, we are looking to expand within our existing markets. We are also exploring new markets, and our existing franchisees that are developing similar to the Popeyes and the Burger King brand, we're completely franchise development driven. So in terms of kind of how those projects are going, things are coming along, I think just as expected at the beginning of the year. In terms of COVID impact, I think there's been a little bit of a delay on the materials front, in terms of essential workers being able to actually go to work sites, but I think we're over that at this point. And so with the exception of a month or two, there's not a whole lot of impact, and we're continuing down the path that we've been on. And in terms of growth, in terms of plans, I think our objective is to grow as quickly as we possibly can. We have a really, really cool and new modern design that we are building in the US right now. We are building a lot of them in our existing markets, and that's where we're focused now. But it's really with the objective of being able to take this model with this new modern image with a really, really strong focus on beverage, breakfast, and our existing baked goods, and being able to take that to the rest of the US. And right behind me is an image of it.
So it looks good.
Yes.
It looks good. It's almost as if we're all there with you.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Alex, Burger King definitely has the most units out of the three, but I suspect that you're still looking to add more. So if you could also take on the question about your growth plans, corporate versus franchise driven, and any markets that you're particularly focused on, please.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the effects of COVID have, definitely been widespread for all three of our brands, but also any brand in the United States has been affected by COVID to some degree. But the best thing about QSR, it's remained really strong. It's been growing for decades, and we don't see that stopping anytime soon. We're really focused on staying open, staying available for everyone in the communities. That being said, I do think there's been some impact, like Jalila and Kafira said, on construction, municipality delays, just the realities of the system that we work within. I think that drive-through has been a major asset. We definitely seen a lot of growth in our digital platforms, our delivery platforms, multi-channel avenues to sales that our franchisees are really happy that we've been able to capitalize on. Versus something like a dine-in only restaurant. So all that to say, we're definitely still in growth mode. I have a lot of franchisees that come to me now more eager than ever. There are a lot of good opportunities out there right now. Specifically, I cover the West and Canada. We have a ton of growth in Ontario. We have an excellent developer partner up there in the Pacific Northwest. We're doing a lot of big things right now. Central Valley of California, and Phoenix is also an excellent market. But with more of a national lens, we definitely are very strong in the central and southeast regions. I think Texas is a particular note. Tons of room, tons of explosive growth in Texas, and we have the right partners to capitalize on that explosive growth. We're underpenetrated to McDonald's nationally. They have twice as many stores as Burger King, so there's obviously still enormous opportunity across the nation in every DMA, every city, and we definitely are looking to close the gap as we continue. Just for a little bit more guidance, we did open over 220 stores last year, just to give you an idea of the magnitude of how much we're willing to grow and how much we want to grow with our franchisees. And we're looking to capitalize on that momentum as we move forward. Really, I think Jalila mentioned that we have a very strong focus on image. We have the BK of Tomorrow, which is our remodel program. Two really strong modern images, our Garden Grill and Pavilion, that we're remodeling stores into. But first and foremost, it's all about taking care of the franchisees, their profitability, and then growing responsibly with them as our partners.
And so they are, forgive me if I missed this, so your growth is all franchise driven at this point?
Yes, correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you. I had another question, but I lost it. So maybe it'll pop back up for me. Oh, I know I was asking.
Sure.
You said 225 stores you opened last year, or thereabouts?
It was actually 223. It's for the exact number.
So do you anticipate that similar growth path will happen? Are you going to try and hit that same percentage of growth, do you think, in the next 18 months or 2 years? Or
yeah, so we definitely are striving for growth, right? but I think that it's all about breathing for a second, taking the time to understand where franchisee sits financially, making sure that they're profitable. So it is hard at this point to quantify the impact of COVID. That being said, we're definitely pushing for high growth, and I wouldn't be surprised if we show some really strong growth numbers in the near future.
Got it. Okay, thank you. It's impressive the room that you guys still have to grow with how long Burger King has been around and how many units you have. Fascinating. Okay, so we're going to dive into the real estate questions as it relates to site criteria, what a perfect location looks like for each of your brands. And so Kafira, I'll start with you. If you can just talk about land size that you require, what the current prototype is in terms of square footage. We did have a guest ask if you have to have a drive-through. I'll presume the answer is yes, but if you could just touch on that. And then, any key demographics or psychographics that you guys look for a site, and share that with us, please.
Yeah, of course. So our prototype right now is about 3,000 square feet. We are in the process of launching our new image. So the prototype is changing a little bit to be 3,000 square feet. So yes, drive-through is 100% required. As best as possible, there are a lot of urban areas where we know that's not feasible, and we work with our partners to identify the best opportunities. But I think even, especially in the time that we are now, we've seen the value and the strength of drive-through, of off-premise opportunities with double drive-throughs and facilitating curbside pickup, et cetera. So building is about 3,000 square feet. The land side is about 30,000 square feet, if I'm not mistaken. And then in site criteria, I think that the most important one right now is traffic counts for us, making sure that we're on high visibility streets as we make kind of this evolution from niche to national. Accessibility and visibility are less quantifiable, but critical to how we how we look at every site. And then in demographics, it gets a little muddier, right? Because we're in this very large evolution arc with the brand. The chicken sandwich kind of took us from niche to national, and it made our product a product of mass appeal, whereas our product wasn't seen as that. So when we think about our demographics, it's something that we're evaluating, kind of how the last 9 months or so have changed what we thought was true, and what does it mean for the Popeyes of the future. But overall, we're looking for strong A+ sites, 3,000 square footprint, double drive-throughs where possible, high visibility, high traffic, to really cinch. We want to bring the brand forward, right? We don't want you to have to look for us anymore. And that's a position that we've been at for a very long time. And we know everyone wants our product. We know it's craveable, so we need to put it where people can have it. As convenience is one of the largest drivers of QSR.
Thank you. Couple questions for you on that. So I know you said your footprint is 3,000 square feet. Do you have like a range of acreage that footprint with double drive-through requires, so that our audience has an idea of land size that prototype requires? Do you know?
Sorry, I think it's about 30,000 square feet.
Okay.
I'd have to check the numbers, but yeah.
Okay. So a little less than an acre.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a little less than an acre.
And then in terms of deal structure, are you guys open to? Is it strictly purchase, or do you do build to suit, ground leases as well?
Yeah, so because we're a franchise, our development is led by our franchisees. It's a franchisee by franchisee decision. And we have franchisees with portfolios that go from build to suit to leasing to owning. And then we have franchisees that prefer just to own. It is a business decision of the franchisee that we talk with them. I think at the end of the day, it also depends on the opportunity, right? How great is the opportunity? How great is that corner to make it work? And I think one of the strengths of our brands are our partners and their commitments, right? So having A+ sites is oftentimes gonna come first to whatever kind of prior ideas that, you know, franchisees have. But again, it is a completely franchisee-led decision.
Thank you. And I'm curious, are there any brands that you follow that you would say, you know, if XYZ retailer is there, that's a market we want to be in, who you kind of find a you know, a kindred spirit, if you will, that matches
Yeah.
kind of your version of co-tenancy.
I think it's a I think it's a combination. You know, we look at a combination of competitors. We like to see, you know, the retail generators and a abundance of competitors nearby to, you know, to kind of signal that this is a proxy where people are eating and dining and buying and commercial actions are happening. With all of the talk about the chicken sandwich, I would be remiss not to mention Chick-fil-A, right, as the number one chicken sandwich seller in the country. So usually when we see a Chick-fil-A, you know, we think something of that trade area, but it by no means, you know, we're by no means trying to match one-to-one, as I'm sure they're not trying to match us one-to-one. So it is, you know, the competitors are a data point. Looking at specific competitors are a data point, but among many other data points of the value in the trade area and that site specifically.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much.
No
Okay,
problem.
Jalila, let's talk Tim Hortons. I was funny. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said, "Oh, Tim Hortons is expanding. That's awesome." I remember them from growing up and going to hockey games and seeing Tim Hortons there. So anyway, if you could just share with us what the prototype is today in terms of size, you know, site criteria highlights, if you will, what makes a good Tim Hortons location. And then I'd be curious if you have an idea of like what your customer profile looks like. What's your you know, your core customer? Who does the Tim Hortons brand appeal to the most?
Sure. So I think I'll start with the last piece of it, which is, you know, our core customer, and it's kind of crazy as it sounds, it's pretty much everyone. So we try to be as inclusive as we possibly can. We often learn that, you know, this is, you know, something, a brand that people grew up with, similar to the person that you were talking with the other day that has strong emotional ties to the brand. It's also a, you know, great value in the coffee space. And we have excellent coffee. So we often find that this is a routine that people develop at some point in their lives, whether it's on their way to work or on their way to pick up kids or, you know, whatever that might be, it becomes a daily part of people's routine. And so, you know, I think where we do best is when we are very densely populated in terms of the number of restaurants that we have. So we really strive to create density in markets. Our best markets have, you know, one Tim Hortons for every 9,000 or so people. So in terms of how many restaurants we can build within a particular geographic area, hopefully that'll give some help to the teams out there. Right now we have a lot of development flexibility, and I think it's one of the things that we've learned over the past couple of years here is that, you know, we don't necessarily need as much space as a Burger King or as a Popeyes. So our focus is really built on building density and building some smaller units where we can have a coffee house appeal. So what we're really looking for is around 1,400 square feet. That includes adequate seating for what we're looking to do. And we that would include dining. We also have a concept that doesn't include dining, which is closer to about 700 square feet. And then we're also able to do kind of various levels of end caps with drive-throughs. As you can imagine, most of our business is in the drive-through. And so that is one of the things that we like to see in terms of new sites. And to the extent that, you know, we can build our design even better because it really gets, you know, the brand and who we are out there and helps to connect with the guests. So we like to be on the morning side, so that's also a little bit different than a lot of QSR concepts. We like to be on the way to the highway. We like to be on the way to work and kind of on these paths in the morning. So those are our focuses. We can build single or double drive-throughs. It really depends on the area and whether or not it makes sense to build a double drive-through. One of the things that you had asked, I think, Kafira about was on acreage and kind of what that means in terms of lot size. We can pretty much work with anything between about a, I don't know, 0.4 of an acre all the way up to an acre. An acre generally isn't needed for 1,400 square feet and definitely not for 700. So we can work with smaller lots as well.
Awesome. And then what about, so I know you mentioned that sometimes you look at end caps with drive-throughs, which presumes you're in a shopping center with other tenants. So what, do you have any preferred co-tenants for your brand?
We don't have necessarily preferred co-tenants. I think what we like to be kind of the coffee option in that strip center or whatever it might be. I think the most important thing is for us to be able to have an adequate stack in order for our guests to be able to easily access the drive-through. So those are the priorities. Obviously, if there's traffic drivers, if there's other retailers in that area, we do like to see that as well. But just given kind of the routine nature of who we are as a brand, a lot of the times we become that traffic driver in the morning.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Okay, Alex, let's talk about Burger King site criteria, what you guys are looking for and what your prototype looks like today.
Sure. So, and I'm going to echo a lot of the same sentiments that you just heard, because frankly, we're all QSR and we're all looking for very similar things. We want to see excellent accessibility and visibility, turn-in lanes, things like curb cuts, just so that we are sure that traffic can get to the store, and then visibility, because we're really proud of our brand. We want everyone to be able to see our brand and know exactly where Burger King is. We love to see traffic lights, love to see hard corners and high traffic, on the cross street and the main street, typically greater than 15,000 vehicles per day. But it depends a little bit on the region and what we're anticipating for traffic conversion. We love to see competitor sales that are strong. We're not afraid of going right across the street from McDonald's, for instance. If they have good sales, odds are we're going to have good sales, and our brand is strong, so we're not afraid of going right up against them. Proximity to existing Burger Kings is also extremely important. Cannibalization can be a factor if you're too close to an existing Burger King. We have guidelines to protect our franchisees from unnecessary impact of new stores. We also like to see strong anchors, just to name a few, Walmart, any big box retailer, really, grocery stores, dollar stores like Dollar General, for example. Gas stations are also strong if you're looking more at, an end cap, for example. Typically, we like to see freestanding with double drive-through, which tends to be up near that acre mark, where if it's an out parcel. But in caps, obviously you can drop down the square footage and still fit a double drive-through in. But double drive-through is our gold standard, and that's something we look for when we're approving any site that any broker, franchisee, whoever brings to us. And that's main factors when it comes to approvals. I'd like to see, 2,000 to 3,200 square feet for the actual building, and some ample parking, depending if it's shared or just for Burger King, but anywhere from 30 to 40 parking spaces. And then back to the drive-through, we like to see a pretty long stack for cars in addition to the double drive-through. So anywhere, the higher the number, the better, but anywhere from 8 to 12 typically is our optimal range.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. I'm curious, I'll go back and ask the ladies this question as well, but I know all three of you touched on the impact on your stores opening as it relates to construction timelines and delays and things like that. And some of our guests have talked about the things that they've learned as a result of COVID with respect to the form they use for their LOIs, added language, things that they're trying to cover themselves on, if something else like this happens. And so I'm just curious if Alex, I'll just start with you. If you've changed anything in that regard, or yeah, I mean, it could be another provision maybe, but just anything that you've changed or really focused on as a result of COVID in your negotiations. Are you extending your construction time frame? Are you putting more
Mhm.
kind of caveats, if you will, on permitting or things like that?
Sure. So I think just to clarify, it's a lot of the negotiation, in fact, almost all the negotiations are direct to licensee. So Burger King does not step into the negotiation between, say, the landlord and the franchisee. That being said, I definitely anticipate longer due diligence periods. For example, fewer deadlines or less stringent deadlines on, say, permitting timelines, construction timelines, and overall just more flexibility, right? I think we've made a lot of progress emerging from COVID, but we're not quite out of the woods yet, and nobody knows what the next 6 months looks like. So we definitely want to promote this idea of flexibility and ensuring that people are able to make the right decisions for their business.
Have you guys, as you know, corporate, have you guys, I don't want to say mandated, but suggested any, changes to your franchisees, as a result of COVID that will be sticking in place? For example, I know, some of our past guests have talked about the cashless checkout systems and just things like that, where they can reduce, human to human contact. Have you guys put any of those type of things into place, and do you anticipate that they'll remain when COVID is hopefully a thing of the past sooner rather than later? But have you made any changes in that regard?
Sure. So, I think a perfect example of this is contactless delivery, not only for our brand, but for pretty much any brand that does delivery. This is the new gold standard. That's one very clear change that we've made. That being said, our operations teams, our design teams, construction teams have all been working closely with municipalities, making sure that we can accommodate any, social distancing requirements, any contactless pay methods that people are comfortable with, and certainly just looking out for the safety and the comfort of, all of our guests and our team members and our franchisees. Right? It's constantly evolving, and we haven't really mandated anything yet, but we're certainly very in tune with what's going on and taking a hard look at all of our operation and design considerations.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. It's just every week it's interesting to hear from everybody and the changes that they're making. I know a lot of people
Hmm.
feel they were putting things into place on a temporary basis and have been surprised at the response by their guests. And now they're planning on keeping those various methods in place indefinitely.
Sure.
It's interesting. Jalila, I'm going to jump back to you because I'm wondering, with everything that's happened with COVID, do you anticipate that? You mentioned that you have some units that are smaller. I think you said 700 square feet. Um, do you anticipate in either the 700 or the 1400 square foot range that you will like increase patio space, have walk up, pick up windows where you can reduce the amount of actual traffic or seating inside your locations?
Yeah, so in the 1,400 square foot, we've actually reduced the seating to 24 seats. So it's actually already pretty limited in terms of from a QSR perspective. In the 700 square foot, it is only walk up or drive through. So I think that's something that we started kind of pre-COVID, and it has become really, really relevant during this period of time.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, so I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on with respect to things that your brand has learned from COVID, or any changes that you've implemented that will stick around, how you're advising your franchisees and kind of what the feedback
Sure.
you're getting from them, anything.
Yeah, sure. So from an operations side of things, I think, we've made a significant amount of changes in our operations. I think we moved really, really quickly on a lot of these things. So we have all of our team members wearing masks, gloves at all times. We've increased our cleaning procedures, I think, very early on in this process. We've installed, acrylic shields in all of our restaurants, both dine-in and for takeout, as well as the drive-through. and obviously taking into consideration social distancing, making, sanitizer available for guests. And these are things that we continue to think about as we move on to the future. These are, for us, these are things that, we will have in place for as long as, they're necessary. I think guests have been very, very responsive to all of the procedures that we put in place in terms of making them feel safe. And it's also helped with, making our team members feel like, they're in a safe place to work. So, I think we've had a lot of internal conversations about, what do these things look like and going forward in the future, and how can we continue to expand on these as we think about all of our new designs. And so, thinking about door handles and restrooms and what all of that looks like. Simple things such as, soap dispensers that you don't need to touch, or being able to open doors without having to touch a handle. So those are all of the things that we are working on incorporating into our new designs.
Got it. Thank you. Kafira, do you want to speak to that at all? Anything that you guys?
Yeah, no, 100%. So I echo both Jalila and Alex's comments. There's actually an RBI task force around like how to take our restaurants to be more contactless, right? So not having to touch the doors, not having to touch the soap dispensers, not having to touch the faucets in the bathroom. So a lot of those learnings are actually applicable to all three brands. Contactless delivery, right, is work that our digital and tech teams started. But it's something that we're looking to incorporate into our restaurants, right? There's the contactless delivery from, the driver out to the customer, but there's also the pickup that we should be aware of. And how do we incorporate updated procedures and updated structures in our restaurants to incorporate that? And that's something that is very much under consideration. And again, right, kind of home of this RBI wide task force that is looking at all three brands and how we each optimize. I think we're going to have a lot of learnings from it. I think the drive-through is more important than ever, and the enthusiasm around it and the technology around it will likely continue to expand and grow and take the learnings and evolve them, which is exciting. So definitely a lot of learnings, and something that all three brands, I think, are working very closely on.
Do you anticipate reducing your seating in your dining areas, or will you just, have parts of it closed off until, quote unquote, we go back to normal?
Right now, we're just having parts of it closed off. We are in this like very critical kind of what does the next prototype of Popeyes look like, and the conversations have started around what does that seating look like in the future, but it's too early to make a call.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. This COVID thing, it's like I'm looking forward to the day that we can have one of these and not even have to use the word COVID. I'm sure everybody echoes that sentiment. Okay, let's talk real quick about, I know that you guys either have completed or are going to complete the spec sheets that we provided to you so that our attendees know how to submit sites to you and who the proper contact is. So thank you for doing that. I can tell you, as having been on the leasing and brokerage side for 20 years, it's really frustrating when you have a site for a retailer and you don't know who to contact. So we're trying to solve that a little bit with these. And so we appreciate you guys putting that data together for us. But I want to talk about, because you guys are all franchise driven, it's a little different than when, we might have a corporate representative on and the sites are, just they're making that decision. But if you could tell us maybe a little bit about site submittal, do you guys like to see, and Kafira, I'll stick with you, but do you like to see sites submitted to you and your team? Do you prefer that they go directly to the independent franchisees? And then once, a franchisee has identified a site, how involved is corporate in, approving that site, and what's that process look like?
Yeah, so we actually really like sites to come directly to us. we like to be able to screen for feasibility, and one of the biggest priorities for us is to make sure that we're growing with the right partners. So we believe that by being able to screen for feasibility and then match the broker and the, if viable, match the broker and the site to a growth franchisee, we think it increases the chances of success and ultimate happy outcomes for everyone, right? For the franchisee, for the broker, and for the brand with an A+ site. When we screen for feasibility, right, we're screening for access, positioning, size. We're screening for potential impact on other restaurants, right? Each restaurant has an area of protected development, and making sure that we're not, that we are being mindful of franchisees, other franchisees in the area. Something that we, when submitting a site, a lot of sites are usually new development. So actually a lat long is probably my favorite thing to see in an email submission of all time, because it's probably the most accurate thing we're going to get. And a lot of planning developments also have image restrictions. And as we think about bringing our brand forward and bringing our hopefully to launch new image forward, we want to make sure that the Popeyes brand looks the same everywhere. So understanding if there's going to be any image restrictions also is important to us. But in terms of site submission, I would say, definitely the lat long, whether it's going to, whether the choice is a lease, a built-to-suit, or a purchase option is really important. And then the size, access, etc. Are all considerations of feasibility.
Is there anything? I mean, I think you answered this, but so somebody sends you a site. What's the best way to get your attention? Like, you want to, there's 5 things on there. Is it like, just give me the bullet points fast so I can look at it, evaluate it, and move on? Is there anything in particular you like to see that really gets your attention? I'm sure you get bombarded with site submittals. So how does one stand out?
Yeah. That's a tough question. I think traffic counts is a way to stand out. Nearby competitors is a way to stand out. And then from there, honestly, we're going to take the lat long and we're going to put it into our tools and see if we love it, but it's too close to another franchisee, we can't move forward with it. But if we love it and the area is viable and it's not only not close to a franchisee, but it's not close to a site under already in the process, we'll match up as quickly as possible. We try to give feedback with every site, right? So if we're turning it down, we also like to tell you why, right? Because we want to make sure that we're engaging in the conversation. And then hopefully the next site that comes your way is a great site and you think of us again. So those are some ways to stand out. We are going to be relaunching our development website in the coming months, and hopefully we'll also have a site submission page there that hopefully will also make very routine what information is required. But in the meantime, we have an email that's going to go out with some materials from this webcast today.
That's great. So to touch on it, it would be helpful if somebody sent you a site, they identified where your competitors were, where your closest location possibly is. And
yeah, we're going to check anyways.
Okay. Do you guys use like Buxton or SiteZeus or any of the other analytical programs, or do you guys just all do that internally?
Yeah, we have an analytical tool. We use SiteWise currently.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Jalila, your turn. Site submittal. I've asked guests before in the beginning when we first started this what your pet peeves were, and we got some funny responses. I don't know if you have any pet peeves or stories about site submittal. If there's anything that you can tell our audience that would be helpful for them when submitting sites to you, to kind of get your attention or get noticed.
Yeah, sure. So, I think just taking into consideration, I think the overall like goal of what we're trying to do as a brand is important in terms of, as anyone submits sites to us. So Suggesting, something that's, on a PM traffic route is something that's kind of a big no-no for us. So really just understanding that we're a morning brand. We like to be on that morning side of the road. Suggesting a 2-acre site doesn't make a lot of sense to us unless, it comes at an amazing offer or whatever that might be.
Buy 1 acre, get 1 acre free deal.
Exactly, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just taking these things into consideration before you say, hey, this is a great site for you. And I think just being conscious of, what those things are that we're looking for. I also think, I think Kafira and Alex have both mentioned this, but taking a look around the area and saying, hey, is there a Tim Hortons, really, really close by, and would it actually make sense for them to consider this site? So I think just using a little bit of, upfront logic check before you send it over is good.
Doing your homework.
Just sometimes you don't know, and it's worth a shot. But I think, I think thinking about it as we would as a brand, to say like, hey, would the brand really approve this? Is what we're looking for in a good partner. And I think some of that will come from the feedback that we give early on and some of the initial ones to help kind of guide that process. But, I think once we've developed that sort of a relationship, it becomes much easier and our success rate is much higher.
Are like Kafira, do you guys like to kind of pre-screen locations?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. So we definitely look at them first. We will connect with kind of the closest franchisee in that area that is growing or willing to grow in that area. And so we generally like to pre-screen just to make sure that we're not, having them spend time looking at something that we ultimately wouldn't approve.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Alex, same question for you for Burger King.
Sure. Yeah, one thing that Kafira said that made me laugh is her latitude, longitude comment.
Yeah.
I love to see lat longs as well, because sometimes addresses can send you somewhere and you don't know where the actual store is going to end up. So I echo that lat long, or even better, an aerial shot just showing this is our building right here and we want you to build a Burger King there. But, there are a lot of things that they touched on, and just to echo a few, the feasibility, how it fits into our market plan, how it looks versus existing stores in the area in terms of distancing. How does it fit our image, right? Burger King wants to do double drive-thrus. We want really strong stacks on our drive-thrus. If you have a 2-car stack single drive-thru, that's almost an automatic no every time, right? So I think Jalil has said, just think of it from the brand perspective, right? I think some clarity on the structure of the deal is really helpful as well. How much is a sale going for? What would the lease rate be? Are you open to build to suit, things like that? And then, the typical factors that we brought up earlier, vehicles per day, traffic, accessibility, how are the competitors in the area doing? For Burger King, one thing that we don't have a preference on is AM versus PM traffic. We have really strong breakfast, lunch, and dinner businesses, so we can take traffic any time of the day and really capitalize. But in general, those are the things I like to see. I remember last year I was in Vegas at ICSC, and someone had these incredible portfolios of sites with it laid out with the drive-thrus and the stacks, and it was very impressive. It really grabbed our attention.
Yeah. Seeing your prototype probably on a plan before you've even looked at it is probably pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know in my experience, there's a lot of retailers who are just, and I'm like this in general anyway too, but it's a visual thing, and the renderings and the site plans and the prototype being laid out on a plan really is helpful. But of course, you have to have the staff to do that and take some time. But that's a good tip for our audience if they have the resources to do that. A good way to get folks' attention. I was going to ask you guys, all three of you, just really quickly, and you can just have all of you guys continued to sign franchisees even during COVID? Have all of you signed franchise franchisees in the last 45 days, 60 days? You can nod. Yeah. Jalila says yes. Alex says yes. Kafira, have you guys signed franchisees during COVID?
So by franchisees, you mean sites? Like new sites? Or new franchisees?
Have you signed up new franchisees during COVID, or are you just sticking with your existing development partners? Or
We've signed one new franchisee. Yeah, we have.
I think it's an interesting thing to see that people are still willing to kind of start quote unquote a new business amidst everything that's going on. But I think again, a lot of people also certainly see it as opportunity too. So I'm just curious about that. I'm going to give each of you a chance to say anything else about your brand that we may not have touched on. We are getting close to time, and I've got a couple of questions from our audience that I want to make sure, to get to. And again, if we've covered everything, and I don't want to make you guys feel like you've got some pressure on you, but if there's anything that you want to mention, Kafira, I'll start with you that we haven't touched on. This is your chance to do so. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I think I've mentioned it a couple of times, but I think for a long time Popeyes was America's best kept secret. Everyone loved our food, but it was hard to find. And I think the chicken sandwich not only broke the internet, but got into hopefully as many people, into a ton of tummies all around the U.S. And we are doing a lot of work to modernize our brand identity and our brand image. And it's really the golden age of Popeyes, right? We are making this evolution from niche to national. It's never been better to try our flavors, to try our business as a whole. The runway for growth is a long one. It's one that we're really excited about. Last week we launched our new brand identity, and hopefully a lot of listeners got a chance to look at it. The restaurant that I am showing behind me is our pilot image. It's actually photos of our first company remodel in Marrero, Louisiana. It is a modern homage to New Orleans. It is bright, it is sunny, it is colorful, it's quirky, and it's all the things that Popeyes is and has been for so long, but really amping up the volume on it. And we're really excited to, last week we opened our first franchisee new building restaurant in this image, and we're excited to continue the pilot, continue getting feedback from our franchisees and fully launch. So the modernization of Popeyes, I think, is probably the most important thing to talk about. And we're going to be a lot more active in our development efforts. We are planning a brand virtual development conference that we hope to share with everyone really soon, to keep sharing the story of Popeyes, to keep bringing you all into what our growth plans are, what our brand plans are, and be able to connect one-on-one virtually. We're really excited for that opportunity, and it's going to be coupled with the relaunch of our development website. So I hope you guys keep a lookout for Popeyes, because we'll certainly be looking for you.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm excited. The store behind you looks amazing, by the way. Okay, Jalila, is there anything else that you'd like to share that we haven't touched on this morning?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think our biggest kind of takeaway from today is, we have a little over 600 stores already in the U.S. I think out of all of the brands here, I think we have the most room for growth across all of the states. We have a really, really strong presence and a strong commitment to the markets where we are in terms of density, in terms of how much we can grow in them. So we're really, looking for partners that can help us along that growth path. I think we have a brand that has a really, really strong value proposition. We bake in-house, we make all of our own coffee, we roast all of our own coffee. And so from a quality standpoint, we're definitely a brand that stands out, and something that is different than the other coffee brands out there today in the QSR space. So I think it's a brand to be proud of. It's a brand that, everyone can be proud to bring to a new community even. We pride ourselves on how much we get involved with the community and with the sports, the youth sports in those communities, and our connection to sports in general. So Really, really, excited to hopefully hear from everyone that's listening to this in terms of opportunities for growth, whether it's in our existing markets or in new markets. Yeah, I think that's the big takeaway here. So I think sky's kind of the limit for us in the U.S. There's a lot of green space, and we hope that we can all be a part of this together.
Great. I'm going to actually ask you your question from the audience right now, just because you mentioned it, and I think it segues right into it. Are you that somebody, Pam Goodwin, who, if you are on social media at all, you should know who she is. She's an incredible author and developer out of Texas. She wants to know if you are coming to Texas anytime soon.
Yeah, so we don't have any solidified plans for Texas that I can share with anybody, but Pam, if you have anything that you want to share on Texas with us, I will personally give you my email address.
Well, she's going to get it. This is my dog barking in the background. Like I told her this would invariably happen. I'm surprised it's taken this long. So I apologize. Alex, do you have any thing that you want to add to the call this morning that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, I think I just want to reiterate how strong the Burger King brand is. We have so many stores in the United States and across the globe, and we still have a huge commitment to, fresh produce in our stores. If you go get a Whopper, it's flame grilled, and the lettuce and the onions and tomatoes are all fresh, right? I think that surprised a lot of people, and it really makes for a very quality product. We have a plan to, by the end of the year, have the Whopper out with no preservatives, no artificial colors, no artificial flavors. And I think that's a huge thing for us, is just having trust in taste is what we call the program. I think looking at QSR in general, it's a low risk investment. Like I said, it's been growing for a long time. It's really tech resistant, and not only that, it's encouraging growth in QSR through platforms like our app, our delivery. We're really embracing the tech surge rather than shying away from it like some other brick and mortar establishments. We have a really strong franchisee base. They're really excited to grow with us, grow up with our modern image. We have our garden grill and our pavilion image, and there's a ton of space to grow. Like I said, we're only half penetrated to McDonald's. So obviously there's potential for thousands and thousands of more stores. So if you have a strong site, maybe put our prototype onto it, and we'd love to take a look. But even if you don't have those resources, we'd love to take a look at whatever you have in mind.
Awesome. Thank you. And it was perfect. You mentioned the Impossible Burger, and we actually have a question from our audience on that. They're asking, how much the Impossible Burger has impacted your sales, and if you guys have seen like really hard, tangible evidence of the impact of the Impossible Burger.
Yeah, it's absolutely been a huge boost. And if you think about it, it's a whole new niche of guests that we weren't accessing before, meatless burgers. And the best thing about the Impossible Burger, the Impossible Whopper, that people don't think about is that it's not only a single platform. Not a single product. It's a platform that we can jump from, right? So it's not just going to be the Impossible Whopper. We can potentially have other Impossible products to put throughout our menu. So it's been very exciting for us. Definitely a big jump in our sales, and it's just the beginning for sure.
Yeah, it really is an amazing thing. The Impossible meat. I mean, it's hard to. I've had it, and it's hard to discern from the original. It's pretty impressive. Okay, you guys.
Thank you.
We are already past time. So I'm sorry to any of our audience if I didn't get to answer your question. I try to weave them in our conversation and try to tag them on at the end, but we have run out of time, so I apologize for that. I want to thank all three of you for joining us this morning. It was really great learning about all three of your brands. I know you guys have a lot of deals to weed through, and I'm thankful for you for spending an hour with us this morning to share more about your brands with not just myself, but our audience. So thank you to all three of you.
Thank you so much for having
Thank
us.
you.
Stacey.
I also want to give a shout out to our awesome sponsor, Capital Rivers Commercial, which is a diverse commercial real estate company out of California that I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. They have some pretty awesome resources on their website, including the tenant relief guide that they've put together, which is open not just to their clients, but to anybody that's in need of having those hard conversations with landlords across the country. So check them out at capitalrivers.com, and we want to say thank you to them once again. And of course, thank you to all of you for joining us this morning. If you like this week's episode, please join me next Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, just like every week, where I will have 3 new guests that we will ask all kinds of commercial real estate questions to. You can sign up at retaillive.com by clicking the events tab, scrolling down to webinars, and registering there. And I also want to remind all of you that our first ever virtual Retail Live event is happening on July 1st. That is for the Southeast market. We have already hit 50 retailers, and we may just open up some more spots to get you guys exposure to more retailers if you'd like to do that. It is limited to 500 people. Please join us by registering at retaillive.com. That is it for this week's episode. Thanks again to our guests for joining us, and we will see you all next week. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Stacey.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.